Respected chairperson and my dear friends, let us discuss a case of heart failure where the resting echo and the Doppler give a tremendous insight into the various hemodynamic aspects. The universal definition of heart failure is that it is a clinical syndrome with symptoms and signs which are caused by a structural and or functional cardiac abnormality which is corroborated by either a elevated BNP or objective evidence of pulmonary or systemic congestion. So this structural or functional cardiac abnormality can be evaluated by echo and Doppler. So let us look at this case. It's a 62-year-old obese lady. The BMI is very high, around 43, and she is admitted with breathlessness even at rest, edema fit. The GVP is raised all up to the angle of mandible, significant hepatomegaly. She is a known case of well-controlled hypertension, diabetes, hypothyroidism, CKD, and she has a normal ejection fraction. She had early signs of NASH-related cirrhosis on CT, and she is having a very resistant, diuretic resistant NSRK. Now, this is a ECG which shows poor progression of R waves, and the X-ray shows hilar congestion, upper lobe vein prominence, cardiomegaly, right pleural effusion. Now, this is her 2D echo, which shows a very nice hyperdynamic left ventricle and right ventricle, which have normal size and function. There is a very prominent left atrium, and there is some rheumatic affection of the mitral leaflet with mild mitral stenosis. And this is the patient's GLS or the longitudinal strain, which is perfectly normal. So we are dealing with a patient who is congested and has got a perfectly normal LVEF and GLS, and so also RVEF and GLS. So she has a mild anemia. The NT-proBNP is 1,400. Creatinine is 1.8. 24-hour urine excretion is 1.2 grams of proteins, which is not in nephrotic range. Let us look at the right heart hemodynamics, and this is her IVC, which does not show any respiratory change of diameter, and it is quite significantly dilated, around 22 millimeters, telling us that the right heart filling pressures are definitely way above 15 of Hg. It is always a good idea to look at both the pleural spaces, and we can see that both the side there is a pleural effusion telling us that there is a systemic venous congestion. So definitely the right heart filling pressures are normal in presence of a normal RV size and RV systolic function. Now let us look at the patient's stroke volume. It is with the LVOT diameter measured here and the LVOT stroke volume measured from the LVOT velocity time integral. We get a stroke volume of 90 ml, which is quite high. And cardiac output is around 8 liter with the cardiac index of 4 liter. Now remember, an echo cardiac index of more than 3.5 liters per minute is very highly specific to diagnose a high output heart failure. So, in the contemporary practice, if we see the major chunk of patients with high output cardiac failure come from the super obese patients. The next group is the cirrhotic patients, and the third group is the patients with the surgical AV fistula for hemodialysis. So why does the obesity produce high output state? Because there is an increased mass and there is more oxygen demand by this increased body mass, but at the same time the adipokines have a vasodilatory property. There is a excess microvascular density which reduces the systemic vascular resistance. There is a renal hyperperfusion causing more sodium water retention. So there is a plasma volume expansion, increased oxygen consumption, low SVR, increased cardiac output, and that leads to a high output heart failure. So as the systemic vascular resistance drops, the plasma volume keeps on increasing, and as the plasma volume increases, it raises the pulmonary wedge pressure. So let us look at the left heart hemodynamics of our patient, and this is her LA volume, which is 50 ml per meter square, which is very high because even the mean A +2 standard deviation, upper limit is 34 ml per meter square. So in absence of a significant mitral disease, a large LA tells you chronically elevated LV filling pressures. This is a mitral flow where the E is and A are almost of the same size, and which is unusual for a lady more than 60 years of age. And these are the E primes of the medial annulus and the lateral annulus, which are reduced, showing there's a reduced longitudinal function, and the E by E prime is more than 20. Anything above 15 generally is associated with a very high left heart filling pressures. Let us look at the left atrial distensibility. That, as you know, that with increasing LA filling pressure, the LA gets distended and there is hardly any further change it can accommodate with LV systole. So this reservoir strain falls as the LA filling pressure go on increasing, and here the reservoir strain is 25%, which is very low because normally is around 40 to 45%. So that means the LA filling pressures are high, and those are going to get reflected into the pulmonary hypertension. So the TRZ is around 3 meters. So the peak gradient is around 37 mm of Hg, and looking at the IVC, which is definitely 15 to 20 mm of Hg RA filling pressures, we get a PA pressure of around 55 mm of Hg. So if we use the AAC or the European Society criteria for diastolic dysfunction with increased left heart filling pressures, then we have to have 4 criteria: septal E prime less than 7 and the lateral E prime less than 10, E by E prime above 14, TR velocity more than 2.8, and LA volume more than 34. In the patients with normal ejection fraction, this picks up around 13.5% of patients with diastolic dysfunction, according to this study, with the patients with hypertension, diabetes, or coronary artery disease. However, if you replace LA volume by LA strain less than 23%, you can actually additionally diagnose 10% more patients with diastolic dysfunction with raised LV filling pressures. So what is the relation? In diabetes, as we say, the HbA1c tells you about the chronicity of elevation of blood sugar. In HepPep, the LA volume tells you about the chronicity of increased LA filling pressures. While in diabetes, the random blood sugar tells you instantaneous sugar. So also the LA strain tells you the instantaneous LA filling pressures. So now let us look at our patient again in this short axis, and one would look at this LA short axis and realize that the septum, the interventricular septum, has slightly flattened. Now, most of the time, the LV filling pressures being high, the septum will always be convex towards the RV. If it gets flattened like this, that shows you that the RV filling pressures have increased and the transseptal gradient has reduced. So in this case, the LV shows a high eccentricity index. That means this anteroposterior diameter is now more than the septolateral diameter. So that shows that the LV and RV filling pressures are getting equalized. Now let us look at our patient's mitral flow respiratory variation, and you can see that with inspiration there is a fall in the E wave, and with expiration there is an increase in the E wave. This change is almost more than 30%. That shows the ventricular interdependence in this patient. So also in the tricuspid flow, we can see with inspiration there is increase in the E wave, with expiration there is a fall in the E wave, showing the ventricular interdependence with respiratory variations in the left and right heart filling, which is reciprocal. If we look at the hepatic vein, if we look at this particular cardiac cycle, always in the hepatic vein, you will have a forward systolic flow and a forward diastolic flow. However, of the first beat after expiration, what we are finding is there is a reduced forward flow and there is a mid diastolic and late diastolic flow reversal, telling you that with expiration, there is an increase in the RV filling pressures, and that may be because of the competitive increased filling of the left heart. So let us come to this concept of pericardial restraint in heart failure, and especially in the obese HepPep. The LV filling pressure that we measure is actually a sum of the transmural distension pressure of the LV myocardium, which depends upon the compliance characteristic of the LV myocardium and the pericardial restraint. So it is a sum of these two things. Then how do you gauge the pericardial restraining pressure? It is actually directly related to the right atrial mean pressure. So as the right atrial mean pressure increases, it tells you that the pericardial restraining pressure is higher, and they almost have a linear relationship. So the thing is, in obese HEP phenotype, what happens is that not only because that there is an increase in the intravascular filling, that there is an increase in the heart volume, but also there is an excess of epicardial fat which forms layers and layers around the heart, causing pericardial restraint. And that is why what happens is the RV filling pressure and LV filling pressure start coming closer to each other, with the septum becoming flatter, and that is why you get the eccentricity index which is more than 1. Now this pericardial fat can be easily seen on the echo here, that you can see that there is almost 2 centimeter thick epicardial fat pad here, and so also you see that in the same patient's cardiac CT. So the thing is, recapitulating everything in our patient, she is a morbidly obese patient with anasarca. She has mild hypoalbuminemia and mild anemia. She has a heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, with objective signs of pulmonary and systemic congestion. She has high left and right heart filling pressures in presence of perfectly normal and RV volumes, ejection fractions, and longitudinal strain. She is in a high output state. She has a ventricular interdependence, respiratory variability in the left and right heart filling pressure, which is perfectly reciprocal, and this all is also explained by the pericardial restraint related to an excess fat deposition in the pericardium. This is one of the classical super obese phenotype of HEP described by the Mayo Group of Dr. Barry Berlog and Dr. Reddy. So let us prove this, and this is the patient's cardiac cath, and the coronary angiography shows perfectly normal left and right coronary system, and perfectly normal, no obstructive coronary disease. And let us look at the pressure tracings. And what we find, this is the simultaneous LV and RV pressure, and there is a diastolic pressure equalization, and with expiration there is a fall in the RV pressure, with no or slightly increase in the LV filling pressures, LV systolic pressures, and so also with inspiration there is increase in the RV pressure, and no change or slight fall in the LV systolic pressure. Let us look at the cath data. The stroke volume is 95 ml. We got 90 ml by echo. The cardiac index is 3.3, which we got almost around 4 liters. The pulmonary vascular resistance is 88 dynes, while the systemic vascular resistance is 770 odd. So definitely she has a low systemic vascular resistance. And if we look at the pressure data, the RA mean is 17, the RVDP is 16, the PA mean is 32, while the wedge pressure is 24. This gradient of 8 mm of HJ across the pulmonary vasculature, so she doesn't have a precapillary pH, and the LVDP is 20. The difference, this particular gradient from wedge pressure of 24 to 20 could be related to the mild mitral stenosis in presence of a high output, but there is almost a diastolic equalization in the 4 chambers, and the PA pressure is 140 by 60, and the saturation difference is the saturation is 74%, mixed venous saturation is 74%. Now this patient, we put her in a significant weight loss mode, and let us see what happens after that. Now this lady went into a proper diet and a proper cardiac rehabilitation, and the gastroenterologist thought of putting the balloon, that space occupying balloon, in the stomach to get a weight loss, but we really did not need that balloon. Just the diet and exercise to help her to lose 30 kgs of weight. You can see the LV function is normal. The GLS remains to be normal. There is now no, the eccentricity index is perfectly normal. Now there is no septal flattening. You can see that the anteroposterior and septolateral diameters are exactly the same. There is no flattening of the septum. The E by E prime remains high. The E primes remain low as before. The E prime remains high. So probably the left-sided filling pressures have not changed. There is absolutely no respiratory variation in the mitral flow. So the signs of pericardial restraint are lost. The LA volume remains high because that's not going to change because it's related to the remodeling of left atrium. The stroke volume also remains high. But however, all these signs of pericardial restraint are lost because that weight loss has definitely reduced her pericardial fat, removing the restraint, and her TR velocity has dropped now. There is no pH, and the IVC and hepatic vein now show respiratory. The IVC is now collapsing with inspiration, and the IVC size is just 11 millimeter. The RA filling pressures are normalized. Thank you.